Welcome back from lunch, everyone. We are moving straight into the chairperson's report. Happy with our report. I'll take it as read. And well, there are a number of recommendations, and to get really to the first speaking point, we will need to move and approve the first. So I will move that we receive the chairperson's report and that we receive a verbal update from Councillor Olds on the advisory oversight group water services delivery planning for the Wellington region and Horowhenua. I'm seconding for both of those. Thank you, Councillor Gray. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. The motion is carried. And as such, I invite Councillor Olds to give us a brief overview.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have Robin at the end of the table, Robin Wells, who's the project lead for the three councils at this stage. And she'll fill in the gaps in a more comprehensive manner than I can. She lives and breathes the stuff. I just attend the meetings and put our views across the table. Obviously the advisory oversight group have now meetings. The first one was to agree to a memorandum of understanding between the Wellington region people, including the Horowhenua. That was done and dusted. So the real thrust of the work starts probably for the last meeting we had. We had a good overview of what we need to be focused on in terms of designing and getting some more information from what the bill looks like and how we're going to be able to transform into a new entity to a large extent. The key for us, I guess, is in the Wairarapa is that we're working closely with Carterton and Masterton and looking at what a Wairarapa entity may look like. We've also included Tararua into the mix, which I'm delighted about because Tararua was sort of seen off in the distance as a bit of an orphan council to some extent because I don't know if Manawatu wanted them and Southern Hawke's Bay, whether they would fit within that model. It'd be quite nice to have a look at an East Coast model to see what it looked like, but it really does boil down to how things stack up in terms of what our costs look like in the future, and that work's ongoing at the moment. Robin, I'm going to ask you to come in at this point and give councillors a bit of a brief. I think as we move through the information gathering process, there will be probably a more accurate way of reporting back to council through this medium. But in the meantime, we're sort of flying by the seat of our pants at the moment. Robin, just before I do pass over to Robin did a submission to Select Committee on the bill last Monday. Was well received, very well researched and written, and that was a submission on behalf of the three councils, Masterton, Carden and South Wairarapa. And Mayor Ron Mark did a submission on behalf of CDC, which captured a lot of what we had in our submission anyhow. So, Robin, I'll pass over to you if that's okay. Thanks.
So I'm actually going to be talking from a talking points and fact sheet that we've prepared as a project. This is the three Wairarapa councils. The idea is this fact sheet will be put onto each of our websites and then with links to things like the submissions that we've made, and then we'll keep that updated, and we'll also be doing regular updates to the project steering committee, the AOG, and then that'll be passed on to the councils as well. So we're just formulating our project team. I'm going to be responsible for a program of work because under the bill, councils have to prepare this water services delivery plan 12 months from when the bill passes, which potentially could be this August. Now, within that bill, we are required to identify our current state of how we deliver water services. Then we need to look at, do we want to be delivering our water services in a joint delivery arrangement? And we have to compare and contrast those two options if we do want to go into a joint arrangement. Now, for South Wairarapa, we have a choice at the moment because we have a memorandum of understanding with 9 other Wellington Region councils. That could be a joint arrangement option that we have. And we now are developing this terms of reference with the 3 Wairarapa councils, potentially the Tararua as well. That could be a joint arrangement as well. So the job is to prepare enough of the information around those joint delivery arrangements to give you and the other councils a choice as to which arrangement they may wish to take forward to compare against our existing arrangements. And of course, all 3 of the Wairarapa councils, and in fact Tararua, all have different existing arrangements as well. So each of those councils have to prepare their own status quo and explain that. And then we're working together on these joint delivery arrangements. So Tararua obviously could come with us, but they're not part of the 10 in the Wellington region, and they've got Horowhenua involved there. So that's all the kind of pieces of work that are ongoing at the moment. We've set up the Wairarapa arrangement to complement the Wellington region arrangement. So we will also have a project steering committee made up of CEs and an oversight group made up of governance representatives. So we're trying to make sure that the way that we are looking at the Wellington region and the way we're looking at the Wairarapa region is consistent and based on the same underlying information and the same assumptions. So we're currently doing some modelling, it's not complete, around what things look like financially, but we've got 2 different modelling groups, and we're going to make sure that we can reconcile all of that, and so that everything is consistent. So when it eventually comes back to you, you'll be able to make a good decision based on clear assumptions and transparency. Currently, the first milestone in terms of the Wellington region group looks like it's going to be around October, when they'll have enough information to be coming back to all of the councils and saying, this is what we think the joint arrangement looks like. And you'll need to make some kind of decision about whether we stay with the Wellington region or not. We're obviously within the Wairarapa group going to try and also be matching that, so you can make some decisions at that point as well. But that's kind of the next milestone, I think, is October. That's been pushed out. At the same time, of course, we do not know what Bill number 3 is going to contain. Bill number 3, the third of the bills that the new government is pushing out. Bill number 3, they think is going to come out sometime in December. That's going to describe things such as what these council controlled organisation arrangements might look like, what financial tools the government may bring that are new to the table. And it's also going to talk about what the economic regulation is going to look like for these new water services entities. So there's still quite a bit of information that's missing as we try to go through this decision-making process over the next 6 months. That's a bit of an overview of what we're doing at the moment.
Thanks, Robin. There's a huge, as you can see, there's a huge amount of work that's been undertaken behind the scenes by Robin and his team, and I really am grateful, Robin, that you head up this project team, and particularly for our Wairarapa entities as well. So I think information will flow through as we get through these advisory group meetings. Janice is also is on as the CE is in those advisory group meetings as well, and we'll capture as much information as we can to share. I think the advisory group, the Wairarapa advisory group, are meeting sort of once a week at this stage, are you not?
Project team meets weekly.
Project team, sorry, yes.
That's right, and we'll be reporting back to the CEs and the AOG of the Wairarapa group monthly. Tentatively next week is our next meeting there.
Excellent. Yeah.
But we have been, as you pointed out, our first thing was getting that submission written and presented, because our strategy around that was very much about positioning ourselves for when Bill 3 comes out that has more detail. So we just wanted to ensure people knew that we were working very hard on what kind of arrangements we might be taking up here with our councils, and very interested in what Bill 3 might present and the kind of things that we're interested in Bill 3. So that was the purpose of
Excellent.
doing that submission.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks very much. Does anybody have any questions at this stage?
More of a comment, really. This is not easy to navigate, I would think.
You're not wrong.
Extraordinary job. Yeah, well done.
Well done.
It's like an absolute
Very, very grateful to have Robin there.
field, yeah.
Yeah.
I nearly said troubled waters, but that would have been
Yeah.
that would have been a terrible pun.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for that update, Robin and Colin. A few questions that I've got. So with Taurua involvement with the Wairarapa group, is that how closely or how interlinked are they with the Wairarapa group at the moment?
So that the terms of reference hasn't been signed. We have formulated the terms of reference on the basis that Taurua would be coming in as well. And we've had discussions on an officers level.
Mhm.
And there's been discussions on a senior level. So we're close to getting to the point where we can confirm in or out on that.
It's great because I just sort of had a bit of a look at Taurua District Council, and they've got, distinct population areas. They've got 9 across their large geographical mass there. They've got 9 distinct population areas. So I suppose while South Y isn't as large geographically as Taurua, we do have a large number of population groups or settlements across our district. So I think there's a synergy there and similarities between South Y and Taurua, even though we've got Carden and Marston between us. That's good. Now, certainly, I acknowledge the amount of work that's gone into your submission already and the amount of work that is going forward. And the prepping, I suppose, it's probably similar to the amount of work that was required under the previous government and Three Waters proposals there. We certainly saw, and we had the feedback from council officers in our previous CE that the amount of work that was in the time that council staff were tied up answering questions from DIA about Three Waters was substantial. Have the proposed costs to council and ratepayers for that work that has been asked from
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor. I just have to leave the table. I'm just going to pop Councillor Olds into the chair just for 2 minutes.
Not the chair.
There was a substantial amount of work required under Three Waters. There was a cost to the councils. There was a cost to our ratepayers. Our ratepayers weren't paying for that work that was required by central government. Have we, in your submission, highlighted those costs? Because I want to ensure that our council staff are actually focusing and working on what's happening within our district, as opposed to those answers and those questions, and no doubt we will have to, that are coming out of central government. Are we going to be sufficiently funded by central government for the work that you're doing?
That's probably a really short answer to that.
Yeah, well, I know there's probably a short answer, but at the start of this process, can we ensure that we are highlighting what those costs are going to incur on our district and our ratepayers?
Yeah, right.
I will ask that question. First, I do want to acknowledge as well, one of the other reasons that we're working with Taurua is the involvement of iwi. And and we do have iwi on our AOG group. Both Rangatane and Ngāti Kahungunu are going to be involved. And so that's another reason why Taurua actually are very keen to be working with us. So I just wanted to say that. In terms of the submission, there were 2 points in the submission that we wanted to point out is the complexity of this process and the decisions that could come out of this process, including consideration of amalgamation that may come out of this. So that's in the submission. The second part was, yes, that there were substantial statutory costs and that needed to be acknowledged by government. And we were signalling that they could be quite significant in the cost on our ratepayers and will eventually be our consumers. There could be a double whammy of picking up water services as well as establishing these new entities. And would they consider things such as zero rating of water services or funding establishment costs? So that was specifically identified.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think the other thing to note though is that we have had access to the information that we'd already supplied to the previous process, so that's not been lost. We've been able to get that back through DIA before they shut the unit down.
Just an interesting point is during Robin's submission to Select Committee is that one of the members picked up and asked a few questions of the model that was being developed, I guess, for the Wairarapa in terms of looking at the possibility of using that on a larger scale. So the work that Robin and the crew are doing is really beneficial. Any other questions? Oh, go back.
Yes, councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a million.
I echo Councillor Bosley's words. It is an enormous amount of work, and I'm very pleased to have both Councillor Old and yourself, Robin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, the next 3 recommendations in the chair's report are just notes. Note that the date of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act quoted in the report from myself is Acting Mayor to Council dated 5 April 2024 should have read 2012 rather than 1996. Note the update on the Wairarapa Consolidated Bylaw, that was just the update on timeframes and versions. And note the update to the terms of reference for council and committees as per Appendix 1, and that one related to the Community Wellbeing Fund. They have met their terms of reference. So if we could move those 3 notes, I'll move them. Have a seconder, Councillor Bosley. All those in favour, please say
Aye.
aye. Those against, no. Motion is carried, and that would then bring us on to so I guess the more substantive decisions. The first is approving the amendments to standing orders as per Appendix 2. This was around providing a little bit more guidance within the standing orders to address repetitive topics and the need for some public speaking to be redirected to other committees or community boards. So happy to discuss and debate. See where you'd like to go. That's all.
I think the amendments or the changes does provide us with a little more clarity. The only thing I'd be cautious about, and I want it to be, and we can ask through the chair whether or not somebody who wishes to speak and is passionate about something, we have some tolerance with the 5-minute time frame, and I think if that request is made early to the chair, and the chair obviously will always have the discretion to grant that extension of time. And I think it's important that there is that opportunity given, because one of the things that we get pushback on is the fact that there's only a small sentence or a paragraph, for instance, to read, which would have taken maybe 30 seconds, and they're chopped off at the finish point, So I think there needs to be some level of discretion. That's the only thing I'll say. The rest is absolutely.
I agree with you. I think the position we've found ourselves in as an organisation as a whole is having to operate in a way that is seen to be fair to all. And I guess it's one of those situations where those who maybe don't follow the rules have set the rules for everybody else.
Yeah.
So whilst I don't disagree with you, that's where we find ourselves, unfortunately.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose reading this and seeing it in the Chair's report, I was a bit uncertain and unsure as to why we are dealing with this. I know we have some regulars who come and speak to us, but I think as part of a democratic process, where our community and members of our community are entitled to come and raise issues with us, whether it's at a formal meeting or out on the street and having a coffee with them, or just in passing. I'm just wondering, why, and has this just come about recently because of, the issues that we've had in the last few months? Also, I'm just, I suppose, unsure about limiting the feedback and the participation from members of the public. We've all around this table put our hands up and our heads above the parapet, and we've stood for election to represent our communities. We've all been voted by our peers to sit around this governance table, to make decisions, to hear the opinions and the advice and the thoughts of our community. And while a lot of the time, we receive good information and good advice, we do receive conflicting and there are difficult people in our community. However, I think that because we have stood up to be representatives of our peers, I feel that we need to, I suppose, take that responsibility and go with it, put our big boys' pants on, our big girls' pants on. And if there is some difficult feedback coming towards us, we need to take that on board and weigh that up with the information that we receive from all the other areas within the council, from our staff, from our external consultants, from our other members of the public. I'm just uncertain about placing restrictions on people's participation, public participation in our forums.
Check with you. So the idea of the amendments to these standing orders are the standing orders for this committee to bring them in line with the council standing orders. Can I just check, and they're certainly not intended to stop public participation in any way. Can I just double check with you if there are any specific amendments that have been made to standing orders that concern you more than others?
So these amendments are specifically for SWC committee, or are they the standing orders for the whole organisation?
Orders for this committee to bring this committee in line with council standing orders. So the anomaly was this committee, and that our standing orders didn't line up with council standing orders. So that's the amendment.
So I wasn't aware that there were separate standing orders for separate committees.
I think just to turn that around, it was to put this committee in the same place as council, given that the business are coming through here.
Right.
To give this committee the same standing order status as council in terms of public participation, to have both of them in the same space.
Right.
It's a great speech, though.
So I do want to kind of dive into those concerns more, because I don't want councillors, and I certainly don't want community members thinking that these are designed to stop public participation, because that is not the intention. The intention is to clarify how public participation operates, not to prevent it. So if the unintended consequence of amendment is that's now how they read as though you can't participate, then we've got some more work to do.
And I was wondering as to why this hadn't been perhaps brought to us earlier, perhaps in a workshop forum, to have that discussion. I mean, I had been involved at the beginning of this triennium with Amanda in the formation of Code of Conduct and Standing Orders, and that was primarily because of during the previous triennium when I was on MCB, the 3 community boards across this council did not accept and did not sign off on standing orders specifically Code of Conduct because of issues that were happening in that previous triennium. So if I have misunderstood where this is coming from, and you're saying it is to line it up with the standing orders for a full council meeting, perhaps I might have understood more if this had been discussed earlier around the table in the workshop process.
Can I suggest that we actually we take some time to consider this a little bit more, having listened to the debate this morning? I think there are some things in there that I have some concerns about. There's the discretion of the chair, for instance, to refuse to allow somebody to speak. Irks with me a little bit, because we don't get to hear about that unless we hear from the person who's been denied that opportunity.
Another forums.
Exactly, yeah. So I think we should take some time over this and actually and consider it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And there's no urgency with this, is there not, Madam CEO? There is.
It would be useful to have some more clarity in this, given the requests that we're now getting on a regular basis. But we can hold this off if you want to for the next meeting.
I've got no question about the processes that, and I accept that as CE you need to look out for the safety and the well-being of the staff in our forums and in our meetings, and that's a responsible position to have. But I just think, I'd be happy to have a greater discussion about this going forward.
I wonder if the wider discussion is whether or not standing orders, this particular section, standing orders is being used consistently across all of our.
See anything in the updates that doesn't continue to facilitate community members constructively engaging with this committee? Like, it seems to me that the updates look like it just puts some surety around the process and remove some of the vexatious use of it. It doesn't seem to me like it gives you sort of tyrannical control over who can say what and when. It's still, very clear that people can come and present to us. I'm quite happy with the changes.
I think that there's some concern about that, the chair's ability to press the speaking. I'd support the idea if we could put it off to the next council. I think they have the concerns.
It won't come to the next council
Oh,
meeting. It would come to the next strategy working.
Oh, next strategy working. Yeah, yes, I would support that given the concerns.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that you want to have a bit of a workshop around it before it hits that.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with this. I don't see it as being restrictive at all. I think it just puts some parameters around the expected behaviour that we want from these people who.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just trying to catch any some control over some individuals, but I don't see it as being restrictive at all. I think it hasn't become an issue at council meetings, and I think if this pulls into line with that, then that's a good idea. It's a good. It's a straightforward process.
It doesn't say that the chairperson has a discretion to decline for whatever reason they feel like it. There's a list of
There is a
reasons why
list
they
of
would.
criteria,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's
Just a few of
the
the
criteria,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but there's still interpretation on it by an individual.
And this is just for this committee. This isn't for,
These obviously very important to the way we manage a meeting and run a meeting. There's no doubt about that at all. And we do have to have some guidelines and your code of conduct around it. And this pretty much outlines everything that we've had previously in terms of a code of conduct.
I think also, yeah, I think in terms of like, sorry, Chair, talking over topic, you know, these are conversations we've kind of had offline, you know, just after meetings and said there needs to be something done about this or just back on discussion.
Mm.
That to me deals with that. That's kind of like the workshop has already been had in some respect. That's how I feel. But we've kind of already done that, and this is just an extension of that conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, these aren't my own personal edits. This is a procedural edit to these papers.
From one
but
to the other. Yeah.
What I'd like to point out is the edits and amendments to things that were already existing. Like you can see where particular sentences were have been struck out, and then what the intention of the new wording is to clarify and provide clarity to what was already existing. Certainly not to drive people away, but then, you know, this is a debate, this is.
I think if we had a workshop and we were to go through this point by point, we'd probably end up the same
point.
That's probably where
I'm happy to see the word vexatious in there. Thank you. You know. Yeah. I think we'd end up with the same. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Councillor.
I think to ensure that we keep moving, I'll put it to the vote. If the vote fails, then absolutely the next step would be to have a workshop, bring it to another meeting, etc., etc. So I am happy to move that we approve the amended standing orders as per Appendix 2. I'm looking for a seconding, Councillor Bray, and all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
So can you put your hands up as well? So we've got
Oh,
so 3. And so the vote fails, and we'll go to a workshop and bring it back to the council, to the strategy committee on the 31st of July. Thank you. So that brings us to our final 2 points, which is the consideration of the LGNZ agreements, which have only just come through over lunch.
I propose that we bring that back to the 31st of July. We've got a list now of the
They've come
remits
out
for consideration.
so
So, and we were expecting them before today. So, I think the final 2 points,
can hold to the
can hold until the 31st, and we'll bring a proper paper back for the 31st.
Right, thank you, everyone. That brings us to item E, members' reports. This is a new item on the WC agenda, and we'll be looking for councillor feedback from the community boards, which the intention of this is to allow easier and improved communication between the community boards and council and vice versa. So open to Featherston.
Sure. So, we have our Featherston Community Board informal meeting tonight. So, you know, this timing of this coming out doesn't really line up with us being able to get a broader feedback from the community board. But I thought, seeing as I've got the floor for a couple of minutes, I'll use it to prattle on about stuff that we've been doing on the community board. The first thing I want to talk about is our Matariki Festival. The Featherston Community Board, we were able to provide a bit of funding for the pie for the honey, and also for the flags that go up on the streetlight power poles for that. And one of our board members, Warren Maxwell, had played a very important and pivotal role in setting up and facilitating the festival, along with a bunch of other amazing community members. There's been lots of very good feedback. I wasn't able to go because I got COVID, but from what I saw on Facebook, it all looked really nice. And also Warren is, he's made a little project where he is now working with a local graphic designer to come up with some street flags for Featherston that are kind of a bit of a branding thing. It's going to be lovely colours, lovely photos. It's a progress. And yeah, that's something that the community board is funding as well. And in terms of funding, we have people come and talk to us about grants. We had grants that were handing out fairly recently, and one of the groups that came to us was Pai Tomokai Otoeda, terrible with my pronunciation. So that's our, they have a nursery, and they're very involved with restoration of the moana, growing the seedlings from seeds that they collect and replanting it. And so they came to us to talk about, or to ask for some funding for some benches. They talked about how they've been a bit of a victim of their own success, and that they are doing such an amazing job. Lots of volunteers want to be involved. They'd love to be able to scale up what they're doing, but there's limited capacity in terms of funding. So we were really happy to be able to give them some money for some cool new benches for that. And the reason that we were able to come to that decision really quickly and easily was because we did this body of work early on in the triennium to identify what our board's priorities were and what we wanted to be able to facilitate for our community. And the nursery was able to meet every single one of those. It was quite cool. We have, so we have community members who regularly attend our formal and informal meetings. One in particular who I won't name because I haven't run it past them, but they show up regularly. They ask us very hard questions in very respectful ways, and remind us how invested our residents are in their community. So I think, that goes back to the discussions we're having earlier about the value of the community boards. And I think, that's one way that I see a lot of value in that. And then the next thing that we'll be working on as a board, we have a small bucket of funding that is from the proceeds of a previous property sale prior to our triennium. And we're looking at working on some strategies for spending that. So it's up to the community board to recommend to council how that gets spent. So we're working through, whether that's a chunk of money on one project or a number of small projects, and how we engage the community with where that goes. So I'll be working on that tonight. And I think it's probably about my 5 minutes. Thanks.
Fast talking.
Any quick questions for Councillor Gray and her Featherston overview?
I guess you're all welcome to come to the meeting tonight if you'd like to.
That sounds like.
Oh, thank you very much for the invitation.
Come on.
Sounds like
Emily will be
impressive meetings.
Thanks. Councillor Eland, wow us with all of your feedback, please.
So I just fired an email around out to MCB to get information from them, and a lot of the stuff, while it has been discussed and talked about, I've sort of gone, some of it's gone over my head, but some of the things that they have, that MCB's involved with, there's a South Wairarapa Community Festival, which is in the planning stages, the resilience planning for Martinborough and rural areas, updating the flag tracks or the flags around Martinborough. I saw they've just recently had the Matariki flags up. The Christmas parade planning, which they took on board last year because Martinborough Christmas parade had fallen into, I suppose, disorganisation hadn't occurred for a number of years. Community board is also has been involved in the internal square lighting project over the last few years, and and everyone is stoked to see the work that James and his team have put in place over the last few months, and using local contractors, Cotter and Stevens, to get those lights within the square up and running, because that had been discussed at the MCB table for a number of years. So that's great. Thanks a lot for that, James. This Memorial Square pedestrian lighting project is another topic on their radar, and council has awarded the tender for that project. And I understand that the staff in discussions with the contractor to work on timeframes and timelines as to when that work's going to start and kick off. Payne Farm is very topical. There are those two, I suppose, part of Payne Farm, there are those two issues of concern. But the good thing about Payne Farm that earlier this year was that the community board was able to award $50,000 in grant funding to various groups within the Martin Borough community, which was awesome, and was the first time in 4 years that grant funds had been dispersed from Payne Estate. Other members of the community board have also recently been involved in the Matariki celebrations at Hauriki, and last weekend also involved in the ceremonies at Papawai regarding Wairarapa, Moana handover and establishment, etc. So there's a hell of a lot that our community board is doing, and I suppose just like Bex was saying with FCB, there's a lot of stuff happening. Both groups, not necessarily under the radar, but was under my radar. Awesome.
Thank you, councillor Elams. Councillor Bosley, the Greytown update falls to you, please.
It does. Thank you, Chair. GCP also doing has done Matariki flags and Anzac flags, etc. And discovered coincidentally that the Anzac flags that we had purchased were actually designed by a Greytown artist, which was some little an unintended consequence. Recent activities was the organisation of the Volunteer Day, which was quite successful. We're celebrating volunteers, and also like an open day for people who are running organisations that needed volunteers. And by all intents, I didn't go to it, but by all the feedback, it was successful. Arbor Day, which is today, Greytown, first place in the country to celebrate Arbor Day, so it's a pretty big day for Greytown peeps. There's the Arbor Reserve, the trees going in there. Joe Woodcock was instrumental in creating a colouring in sheet for the schools to do to enter a competition all around that, and there's been our favourite tree kind of map thing, like where people's favourite trees around Greytown. We do love our trees, Greytown. Matariki, along with Papawai, was the first time that's been organised by the GCP, along with Papawai, which was held at Neil Morrison's place. He's a sixth generation farmer, Bidwell's cutting there, and it was, I didn't expect to be so moved by the experience. Did you go to that father? Anyway, it was extraordinary. It was phenomenal. The whole morning was incredibly moving, followed by a rather nice breakfast at Papawai Marae and a few speeches. Obviously, the Festival of Christmas on the go at the moment, in which the GCB gives a small amount of support to that. Recently had Tim came and finally presented to the GCB regarding roading issues around the area, and we had to bribe Tim with the offer of chocolate cake to get him down there. If anybody's looking to get Tim Dolan to a meeting, chocolate cake works. And that is mainly for, we've had age concern have been after a disability car park in Greytown, because there surprisingly isn't one anywhere on the streets in Greytown. The only one is behind the town hall or behind the Workingmen's Club. So this is one actually on McMaster Street. So we've got our support along to that. And the only other thing is that we're still waiting for some support from council in terms of technical support, etc., around our stakeholders meetings, which we're required to have regarding parks and reserves. So Louise asked that I mention that, that she feels there's a little bit of support is lacking in helping us pull that together. That has been on our action list since May of last year to get onto. So if we could have that looked at, that'd be great. But that's pretty much it. News from Greytown.
Could you just explain that a little bit more about the,
Stakeholders meeting.
yeah,
So we're required, SOEC delegated requirements that we have an annual stakeholder meeting with users of parks and reserves. And that was undertaken by the GCV. We had various speakers come along to us last year, including Alistair, who talked about Wheels Park, etc., and gave us just the progress as to what was where things were at. James was invited to come, but was unable to attend. It's been advertised in the Grapevine and others that these public meetings are taking place for people to come along, but we just don't get that support for that to happen. Because they're official meetings, we require them to have official technical support, things recorded, etc. And that hasn't happened. The chances is prior to you starting, obviously. And so there's another call for issues to be raised. That I'll just read this email from Louise saying. Yeah, it's not an informal forum, it's a formal forum that we have to have. Yeah.
Well, I think just in terms of overview of community board business and flow of information. So
It's something that's really
It's
worthwhile.
nice to hear what community boards are actually doing, which is really pleasing, I must admit.
Yeah, that was really
Very
good.
good.
I really enjoyed that.
the next item on the agenda is appointment report, but the appointment report is from Councillor Plymouth, who is an apology today. So we will move directly to public, moving to our public excluded section. Do I have a mover to excluded? Thank you, Councillor Ray.
We have to move to accept his report.
thank you.
See you in years.
That was just
It's just a report. It's just
Oh, right, yeah.
paper report.
Okay.
I've got one as well that I didn't get through in time for the agenda from Councillor Trails because we didn't meet until last Thursday, so. That's just a report.
It could, or you could move both over to.
Yeah, I could just move.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we've got a mover for moving to public excluded. The general subject of each matter to be considered by the public is excluded. The report and general subject matter is the public excluded minutes of 5 June 2024, and good reason to withhold exists under section 7(2)H in grounds under section 48(1)A. We will also be discussing the Greytown Wheels Park design and build options, and good reason to passing this resolution exists under section 7(2)H in grounds under section 48(1) for passing this resolution. We'll also be discussing the appointment of members to the district licensing design list, and good reason to withhold exists under section 7(2)A and section 48(1)A. This resolution is made in reliance on section 48(1) of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 2007, in the particular interest or interests protected by section 6 or section 7 of that Act, which would be prejudiced by holding of the whole relevant part of the proceedings of the meeting in public are as follows. Withholding of the information is necessary to protect the privacy of natural persons, including deceased persons. The withholding of the information is necessary to enable any local authority holding the information to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage commercial activities. And that is under section 7(2)H. Now to not from the stream.